Good afternoon, everyone. Just a few quick protocol things on our side here at MDE. I will be presenting along with several others on the 98C Learning Loss Grant Technical Assistance. This is our first one of two. This one's focused more on what is needed to make the deadlines for the school boards coming up. Dylan is on our side. He's going to be monitoring the chat. Any questions that are put in the chat, we will have recorded and we'll address later in the presentation. We will be giving you the grant website, and so that you can link to our FAQ, where we'll hope to capture those questions and keep our answers there so that everyone would have the chance to see them. With that, I'm going to get started. Thank you for joining us today about this grant. This grant supports the Michigan Top 10 Strategic Education Plans by providing access to high quality instruction and designed to close the achievement and opportunity gap. It is aligned with our guiding principle number 1. In this session, we're going to talk about the grant requirements, funding sources for the funding, the application process, and resources that are available for you at the MDE website, along with those that you may have in your district. Our grant requirements is Ruth Ann Hodges at Michigan Department of Ed is going to talk about the grant requirements for this grant as outlined in the legislation. Ruth Ann.
Thanks, Jeff, and you'll just click through for me, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So what you can see in front of you is what came out in the memo. And what we're going to talk about, each of these requirements, but we're really going to spend the bulk of our time talking about what can be included on your plan to address learning loss. Because, as Jeff alluded to, these district plans need to be presented publicly at your school board meeting, not later than October 30th. Now, what we do want to make clear is that doesn't mean that they have to be presented between now and then. These could be for plans that you already have board approval for, and that you can use some of this money to support and maybe redistribute the funds that you had going to your already approved plans somewhere else. So just to be clear, because we suspect many of you already have learning loss plans implemented. So this is from you said there's a guidance document on these funds from US Ed, because these are funded with federal funds. Go back one, Jeff. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yep. Nope, the next one. No, forward, the other way. You were, there we go, stop there. So when we're, well, first of all, even though the state language says learning loss, we prefer, and US Ed prefers to talk about it as lost instructional time. And so how are you going to make up for that lost instructional time? And you said, and us particularly want you to address inequities, like which students really suffered from the pandemic. So really on your underserved students is the ones that you really should be focusing these efforts on. Jeff, you can go to the next slide. This is a screenshot from our accelerated learning website. And I'll show you in a minute how to get there. But we have put together some briefs on Accelerate Learning that, if you don't have a plan yet, might be helpful. But essentially, when we're talking about addressing lost instructional time, we're talking about accelerated learning. And you're really encouraged, and the research says that we should be accelerating learning with students by providing engaging learning opportunities within the tier 1 grade level instruction. And by engaging, I don't mean turn and talk. I mean, what's some really cool stuff that you could engage the kids in, that they can go into deeply, that they find extremely interesting. And but this still supports your tier 1 instruction. And along with that, create a focus on essential skills. If we're going to take time and go really deep, and then we need to, there's probably some things that might have to drop out of the curriculum. But what is it that is absolutely essential for these students to have at each grade level? We've provided some guidance for that, at least for the elementary level in math and ELA on our website. I know that many of the ISDs have done a really great job of providing some essential skills documents that might be helpful for you. You also are encouraged to do diagnostic informative assessments. Again, these could all be things you could spend your 98C dollars on, but the idea of having these diagnostic informative assessments is that you're determining where the students' gaps are as you're moving into a grade level unit that you think the kids might not be prepared for. So basically, what is it that these students need to access this tier 1 content that's on grade level, and using the assessments to help make that determination. Targeted tutoring. So once we've diagnosed that what the students are missing in order to stay on grade level at the moment, so we're talking about at a unit level, how are we giving them the supports they need at the moment so they can keep moving forward? And then, of course, there's attention to the students' social emotional needs as they're coming out of this pandemic. All our information can be found on our website, and I've just got a screenshot here. If you go to michigan.gov/MDE, click on resources, and then accelerated learning is right at the top there. And let me just take a minute to see if there's any.
Ruth Ann, we do have some questions.
Yeah, I was just looking.
What resources?
I was just going to address really quickly. I see a number of people are saying we are maxed out. We thought that our ed tech license did accommodate more than 100. It looks like it does not. We are going to share out this recording and the PowerPoint as well for any of your colleagues who were not able to make it in.
Thank you, Dylan.
And this is being recorded, and we are in the process of building a web page where we are, as Jeff said earlier, we're going to upload our kind of a running FAQ, this PowerPoint, and any other resources we have linked. That web page isn't live yet. So, but it should be, yeah, it should be shortly. And I think that, like I said, the copy of the PowerPoint and the recording will be on the website, but we can we'll see about if we can email all the participants too, if there's a way to do that. So you can have that as well. Okay, Jeff, you want to go to the next slide for me, please? Okay, let's see. I think there was one other question. So the question is, social emotional resources aligned with larger comprehensive plan can be funded with these dollars. Yeah, we're pretty much saying as long as you can make the case that this is going toward making up for lost learning time, you can we're going to talk just a little bit more about that, but anything that you can make the case for, and what makes sense given your district and the needs of the students. I did want to point out that learning acceleration can be in school or out of school programming. And it can include summer learning and enrichment, but there's a caveat to that summer learning, is that you have to have an expense report uploaded and sent to MDE by July 14th of 2023. So any summer learning would have to occur before the end of June, so you could have time to complete your report. Let's see.
Ruth Ann, we have two questions. Are there plans to provide a learning loss plan and budget template that could be shared out with local districts and then uploaded so they can hit all the areas of the plan that are required?
There wasn't a plan for that. I don't know, the budget template, that might be a GEMS question. And we have Josh on here who can talk a little bit more about the logistics of the GEMS application. And there's, I mean, no, in short, we don't have a template except whatever is in GEMS. So the reading curriculum, the acceptable use of these funds, again, you're going to have to make the case to the legislature. You're going to have a report at the end of the year that says how did you how did you spend these funds? How did it impact students? How did it address learning loss? We are not necessarily going to be arbitrators of the quality of your plan, but the law is very clear that if you don't spend your dollars that you get on addressing learning loss, they can pull it back. So again, you have to make the case. Let's see, this MyKIP. I agree 100% with the MyKIP. I mean, this should already be something that you have, you've been talking about through your continuous improvement plan, which is why we said up above that you've already had these plans approved by the board and you just need to make it visible, and you can get reimbursed for some of these, or you can repurpose funds that were already going toward that plan towards something else. Let's see. Yeah, Jeff answered the one.
We We have a question about what about curriculum for science and social studies? Are they
Okay.
tied back to the ELA essentials since the pandemic? Our scores in those two subjects have gone down.
Again, anything that makes the case for addressing lost instructional time, I would say that given that science and social studies sits in my unit, absolutely, that's absolutely, science and social studies could be really rich context for extending math and literacy time, for engaging students in back into learning, back into school. Just make the case. This is so this also well, we're going to talk about it in a minute. Let me see. The summer learning deadline, it's going to depend on your district, but you have to file your report by July 14th. So we're anticipating most districts would want to have all that summer learning done with by the end of June, so they can close out their books, if not before that. It's not the summer learning deadline, it's the reporting deadline that's getting in the way this here. With
I think I'll be covering those next couple in the next few slides with Ann about the funding and fiscal year.
yeah, so
that's
just
coming up,
hold
so.
on to those thoughts. And yes, to Amy's question, that's why we're saying there's in given two where you don't know yet how much money you're going to get. If you already have a plan in place and can get it posted on your website, then there's no reason you can't just repurpose money. Go ahead with your I'm assuming in there embedded within that question is that that planning was for lost instructional time. So there's no reason these dollars can't support that plan that's already made, you've already made. No, you can't submit expenses for summer learning from summer 2022 because technically the law doesn't go in effect until October 1st. So I think I got all the questions on the learning loss. So yes, you can, Christian. You can supplant. That's why we keep saying it. I'm talking about it more as kind of like repurposing. So if you do get these extra funds, you can put them toward something you were going to fund with something else and repurpose those dollars. You have to be careful though. There's a maintenance of effort piece here. So you can't, you still have to make sure that your dollars are really addressing lost instructional time, especially for the students that need it the most. Timothy, that's a question for the legislators. We didn't write the law. We're just implementing it. So Jeff, I think if you want to go, it's we just want to make clear that whatever your plan is, that you have to post it on your website. And in the GEMS application, I believe we're asking for you to provide us with that link. And then if you do update the plan, the updated plan needs to be posted as well. per the law, and as Jeff's going to talk about too, when it comes to the reporting, it'll just be easier if you have your updated plan posted. So before I hand it back over to Jeff, are there any more questions around just the actual plans for addressing lost instructional time? We do have, and we will have posted on our website links, like I said, to the accelerated learning, to some other guidance documents that might be helpful as well. So the summer learning is, if you want to do an early summer camp, the summer learning has to be done in time that you can get your report completed and submitted to MDE by July 14th, so we can turn around and submit it to the legislators by their deadline. So you could use, anything that in summer learning you think would address lost instructional lost instructional time. And don't forget, you can do out of school time stuff too that would address lost instructional time. Yes, Hillary. And so yes, so if you have plans already in place, you just have to make those visible. You have to make sure that they're board approved. And that's going to be, then that proof is going to be submitted in your applications. So the stakeholder engagement, Jan, you mean that they gave you feedback on the plan, I'm assuming? This law is moot on doing stakeholder engagement. So
I guess what I'm wondering though is ESSER 3, their LEA plan for use of funds where they had to address learning loss or lost instructional time. There is a requirement as they began those plans and update those plans, a federal requirement under ESSER 3 to engage with stakeholders on any of those changes and adjustments. So if they're going to use the 98C funds in accordance with that LEA plan for use of funds that already addresses learning loss, I'm thinking districts would still have to live into stakeholder engagement if they adjust that plan.
Well, these aren't ESSER 3 funds, so I don't know if that would apply or not.
But if they build, okay, I guess it depends on what they call their plan. If they just create a separate plan.
Right, or say we have this plan and we're funding these pieces of our already approved plan with these dollars. Right.
Okay, versus changing the plan to add something new. Okay, that helps.
Right.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Right. Yeah. And to be clear, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You could have a pretty comprehensive board plan and these dollars could go to support certain pieces of it, particularly where you don't know how much money you're going to get. Right. So you could you could become eligible for the funds by having a board approved plan and having that posted on the website. And then once you know how much money you're getting, you could say, okay, we're going to target this piece of the plan with these funds. And that's where, and that's what we'll report out on in next year. Yeah, the Dina, they don't have to be approved. You just have to meet all the requirements to be eligible.
Okay, Dan, if you could clarify that the 98C plans have to be approved by your board. They're not approved by us, but they have to be approved by your school board and posted along with the changes, but there's not an approval process on our end.
No, we're just going to go through and look, do they have an approved, a board approved plan by their local school board? Is that plan posted? What else? Yeah, those are essentially, right? The big basics, right? Oh, and the metrics. Yeah, it does just have to be presented. You're right. It does. The law does say it just has to be presented to the board and evidence that it was presented to the board. So it
Sorry,
has
folks,
to be publicly presented. It didn't say, you know, board approved. It didn't say stakeholders had to give input in it. It just said publicly presented. Yep.
So I thank you for your time. We're just going to try to move along here. We do have another one of these coming up at the 1st of November, but we wanted to make sure that we're covering getting at least a taste of this out to everybody so that, especially with that short timeline, if you do have to get something presented to your board, that you have it. One of the things is that the legislation requires that we have a report. That report is got to be and here's the timeline that Ruth Ann was talking about. We have to have that to them by August 15th. So that's why we're asking for everybody to, basically we're collating the report. So you need to send us your report by July 14th so that we have some time to get that all put together in a nice little document and then sent off to the legislators. That's not required in the legislation, but we thought that would be much easier for the districts just to submit that to us instead of having 800 some reports go to them. You will have to indicate how those funds were received. Oh, sorry, I gotta get on to my next slide. So what's in that report? The legislation was very vague on this, along with some of the other things. You have to tell us the amount of money spent. They want to know what services were provided, the students reached, and then impacts on student achievement. So when we put this together to try to help meet these legislative requirements, that's where we say that your plan should have some metrics on how you're going to measure its effectiveness so that your report can go back and highlight those areas and how the money was spent. Hint, 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 they did not say it had, that they're looking for, was it highly successful? They just want a report on, did it work? Didn't it work? And the actions that you took using these funds. So my little hint is that use these funds, try some 3P learning, try something that you've always wanted to do to help the students and accelerate their learning, but not have to worry about the financial ramifications if they aren't successful. This is just another how the funds are received. As we said, this will be, our slides and stuff will be presented. Trying to be courteous of everybody's time, so I'm going to kind of run through these, and then I do want to get back to some of those follow-up questions. This is the one that Ruth Ann was talking about, that if they are not used for learning loss, the funds will have to be recouped. We'll have more information on that in our later technical assistance. So when we get back to that reporting, grantees must specify how they will measure the impact of their application. The updates do have to be loaded up and to the plan and the metrics into GEMS. The final report must be uploaded to GEMS application by July 14th. That's why it's going to be hard to have any funds spent after that date. I know there are some, can you have them allocated and then spent after? that's going to be rather difficult to show in your report that you spent the funds if you're having the report done by July 14th. Funding is distributed to each LEA. This is what we know so far. I wish I had a better answer on how much money you're going to get, but the law wasn't very clear on that. It says that we're given X amount of dollar and we're going to have to allocate it or according to pupil membership. So I am not sure what that fund's going to be because I'm not sure how many people on this call are going to apply. And so I don't know what, I know the top amount, but I do not know my denominator. And so when finance gets that report, they will be able to tell you how much that you'll be able to get for that grant. You do know it's calculated on your per pupil. So we can go from there. Hopefully we'll have a better answer for that on November 4th. The application process, it is in GEMS. And Dylan, if you want to open up those, if you haven't seen, well, people on this call must have seen the memo and the link to the application or you wouldn't have been here. So that's kind of my checks and balance so that everybody here does have a link to the application. We also will have a more of a detailed technical assistance meeting on November 4th to cover any of the application questions and hopefully as just to answer some of the questions that have been put in the chat and that we'll receive closer to that date. Resources, we started talking about these resources. Ruth Ann hinted to a lot of them. The 3 bullets on the right-hand side will give you links to that information. So that is what we are using for guidance on this grant. Jan was pointing out that this ESSER funds, but we have to make sure that we're in the right category when we're looking at that. So you will find that information when this grant is released. This is going to be available soon, but you will be able to find all the information on this grants page, and we will have one titled specifically for the 98C grant. No, Jan, you haven't missed it yet, but we'll have it out there soon. Now, I will go back through some of these slides. I just wanted to make sure that everybody got a view of them. I can answer some general grant questions along with Ruth Ann. So that is my contact information at the top, and then questions on learning loss and accelerated learning, you can address those to Ruth Ann. She's our expert in that field, and she can help you there. Most of you have probably met, and he is online. Josh Long is our GEMS Mars guru. And so if there's specific application questions you can't get into the app or you're having problems in the application, he would be the one to address for that. Now, I know I rattled through those last like 9 slides rather quickly, but I wanted to make sure that we presented that information. Now, I will go back, let's see, where do we, and look at some of the chats. I'm going to pick on, thanks Daniel for putting the amount in there. Yes, you can find out the total membership of the state, take that 52 million and change, divide it by the total FTE, and that maybe give you a possible amount that you could apply for. But I'm not going to go out on that tree limb because I am not sure what that amount is. So I don't want to give anybody an idea of what they're going to get in FTE and then have you be misinformed on that. That's up to our financial department.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that Jeff and I are in the education experiences unit. We're not in the finance unit. So I believe we'll address some of that more in the next technical assistance meeting.
So we have a few questions as far as what is the due date for the application? That's a big one that's come in a few times.
refer to the memos. It's sometime in November, but I gotta pull the memo up to make sure.
I think it's November 30th.
Yeah, that sounds correct.
Because that gives you a month after you've presented to your board. If you couldn't get scheduled with your board presentation till October 30th, you still have a month then to get your application in. I believe that regarding the questions on the templates, I believe in the GEMS application, is there a little bit of there's a really loosey template in that you know, and
Then
that
just
there's
chiming in here, unfortunately, there's not really a Lucy template at all.
but there are questions that they have to answer or address, right? It's
That is
not
correct, yes.
right,
yes.
right. So it's not like we're just asking you to upload some sort of narrative. There's questions and then there's places where you have to provide a little bit of narrative, but it's kind of guided questions in a way.
One of the problems with doing a budget template is each district could be addressing learning loss differently, or providing an accelerated learning experience differently. And so it's very difficult for us to come up with a template because we did not want to limit how you're going to address learning loss. If you wanted to, or the loss of learning time, if you wanted to do that through 3P learning, before and after school programs, any of a myriad of different things can be tried with this grant to get you to where you want to be.
There was another question of, will there be a follow-up with email? Will there be a follow-up email with more information regarding eligibility requirements and funding allocations?
Eligibility requirements are pretty easy. It's anybody that receives membership. The funding, as I said, that's what we'll try to get an answer from finance for you. They may be able to calculate the minimum you get, but since we're not sure how many districts are going to apply, I don't know how to tell you what that total dollar amount is. So we know there's a total pot of 52 million and change, but I'm not sure how many people and will be applying for that and what that gets divided by that membership.
And just a note on the eligibility piece, you're eligible if you apply and meet the criteria. You upload a plan, it's posted on your website. Those things you don't just automatically get. You're not automatically going to get funds, and you have to apply, and then you're eligible if you meet all the requirements of the grant in the GEMS application. Jeff, why don't you just go back quickly to the contact information piece? Oh, I guess you quit sharing. So essentially, if you got questions about what should go in your plan, email me. If you got just general grant questions, email Jeff. And if you have GEMS questions, email Josh. And I had put in the chat the links to those resources, and those will also be on our website once it's up and running. And we will make every effort to put in our weekly email just an alert that web page is up and running.
Did our information come back up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we will post this PowerPoint on that website, and we will post the recording on the website once we make them all ADA compliant and we get the website live.
Thank you for your time, everyone, today, especially giving me the grace of the extra 15 minutes. I know how precious time can be at the end of the day, so I appreciate you sticking in there. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out and we'll try to get those answered as quickly as possible and have those also posted to the FAQ so that everybody gets the same information towards this grant. Because just like back in the classroom, if I was teaching, one student maybe that asks a question, maybe the answer is good for several. So please feel free to reach out. And with that, thank you very much, and everybody have a great end of their Monday.